Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am your host, Capcom Studios. You may have seen me doing long videos of Mega Man Rock Wars, but end up deleting them. But today, I am finally going to do another type of Mega Man Rock Wars video. And in this video, I will be explaining the in-depth detail and other things that you may not know about the game. The developer probably put some things just to be there, but in my eyes, I see millions of things and meanings behind each detail on why Mega Man Rock Wars is a perfect Mega Man fan game. I played this game many times and never got bored of it, and didn't care if those kids were behind my back were talking smack about what I was playing. And this game was a motivation for me when I was in a deep state of sadness back when. Aside from that, let's start out with the game's story. So the game opens up with Mega Man standing on top of the hill, and dialogue says that Dr. Wily has been quiet for a while. And Mega Man formed a team of 8 robot masters that aren't built by Dr. Wily. One day, 8 rebellious robots from different countries, yes, different countries. I say this because when you defeat all 8 robots, Dr. Wily directly says the energy signatures from each robot masters you defeated, they are recombining across the world. And I will go into detail about which nationality each robot will be later. Getting back on track, Mega Man forms a team in case something happens to him or to his loved ones, and we are introduced to a brand new robot named Justice Man. Justice Man is a robotic counterpart to Mega Man, and will be coaching him. Meanwhile, Mega Man sent his Rock Force to go handle each of the robots, but they all disappeared. So it was up to Mega to go stop the robots and find the rest of the Rock Force. However, now when I just played this game to make this video, to put the timeline in order, the intro is after Shockman's incident, or Shockman's panic attack at his workplace after hearing about the exploration law. Now, the game starts off with you at Shockman's stage 6 months before the rebellion. And that was the time Justice Man was built. And it was your first time working with him. Or Mega Man's first time working with him. So, this also means that this is when the robots haven't formed just yet, or the rebellious robots haven't formed just yet. As you go into Shockman's stage, you begin to see how clean and how much it looks like a typical day to go and fight crime. Which is in the day. You may have noticed it happened on a peaceful day. I'll explain more in a moment. As you make your way to the end of the level, you see Justice Man telling you the rest of the non-hostile workers, or all human workers, were evacuated safely. Then Shockman's hand comes out and executing Justice Man till it makes him faint. After defeating Shockman, you bring back Justice Man to Dr. Light's lab, and from Dr. Light's analytics, his functionality is completely operational. He's able to move just fine. However, the shock has altered his mental matrix rather strangely, which means the shock has affected the circuitry that gives him his personality and thought processing, which is his integrity system has been changed. After Dr. Light and Mega Man leave the room, Justice Man awakes with a new mind and vision of the world. Present day, you are introduced to the 8 robots. To defeat them and free each Rock Force team member in a certain order, the rebel robots fuse to become new robots. But if this part was more logical, then they would break apart and become 4 new robots in order of what robot number they are. After defeating them, they become one entity, also known as Death Man. After defeating Death, you are greeted by the leader of the rebellion, Justice Man. Justice Man tells you that humans are committing genocide and hate against their race, all because of a law, which is referencing the law in Mega Man 9. And it's the same law that he is talking about. Mega Man wanted to share his view with the public because he thought the people would peacefully listen. Justice Man declined Mega Man's offer and told him to not share that view yet because he believes that humans will take advantage of the problem and turn it into their favor. So he warns Mega Man not to go after him, but Mega Man still wants to go stop him because no matter what, Justice Man will fight and kill people that cross his path to robot independence. As Mega Man goes on to report to Dr. Light finds out what part of Justice Man's circuitry was sabotaged. It was, I didn't know, but my guess was correct. His integrated system was the one behind of how he saw everything, just how the other Rebel robots saw how the world is against machines. Which brings me to a question. Does Shock Man's Shock Gauntlet share his thoughts with others? Anyways, Dr. Light was able to find Justice Man's castle, and Justice Man was disappointed that Mega Man couldn't grasp the harsh reality of what he saw, and had no choice but to destroy Mega Man. At the end, Mega Man brought back Justice Man's circuit board, and Dr. Light dismantled each piece, and his circuit board was heavily damaged and fried. Too fried beyond repair. Which means that Justice Man is officially dead. Mega Man was saddened to hear that, but Dr. Light comforts him that it was his fault for not doing more research before declaring him ready for life. And no matter what Mega Man does, he will always make him think outside his programming. As he walks up to Mega Man to give him a warm father hug, telling him everything's gonna be alright. As the credits roll, the robots were given the jobs they wanted and to forge their own destiny and purpose. Finally closes with when Mega Man is sitting on a bench in a peaceful night view. Now to the part I've been dying for. I'll be explaining each stage, fusion robot, weapon weakness, and references. Starting off with Shockman. Remember I just said how bright his stage is in the beginning? Now looking at his stage after 6 months, it appears to be abandoned, dark, gloomy. Which means he now owns the place, and it's a hideout for his rebellious members. His weakness is Circuit Breaker, because a Circuit Breaker prevents a shock from happening, and it controls electricity. As for when you liberate Nitro Man, there are 2 details why he is strong against shock. One, since he has rubber tires, and if we're being realistic, he can not take any effect from his attack, and can slice him and open him up easily as an egg. 2. His wheel cutter was designed to cut that type of metal that he was built with, like a cast saw was made for cutting casts and not to kill people. Next is Boom Man. His name was changed because there is now a Cannon Fuse Man in Mega Man 11. And I heard his appearance had to be changed because he looks like Pulse Man, which I honestly don't believe because anyone that played Mega Man Raw Force can easily identify the two. Anyhow, talk about his stage. It takes place in one of the mines in Arizona, which is pretty neat how they included a location which already answers Boom Man's nationality, which is American. His weakness is Shock Gauntlet, because a shock can start a fuse or ignite a fuse. Electman is strong against Boom Man and still has the same explanation. Next up is Cryptman, my top favorite robot master from the game. This stage takes place in a graveyard and it has you go through a crypt, an underground tunnel, and then in an underground crypt. Where he appears and where you fight him is the crypt that he guards that's straight from the wiki. Cryptman was created to repel grave robbers from the ancient tomb of a wealthy family. Visitors have noticed that he seemed to dislike the depressing atmosphere of his workplace and longs for a more uplifting purpose in life. His eloquency and nobility are well known, which is why he serves as a main spokesman for the rebels. Despite this, he prefers to work in the shadows and hates the light when light sabotages his stealthiness. Since his recent refusal to work, the ancient tomb has become infested with many dangerous thieving robots, though many booby traps are still active. As you can see, Cryptman's weakness is Photon Flare. Dive Man's Red Missile can also be his weakness because his dive missiles is based on a real torpedo. His torpedoes can find its target by sound, which can detect Cryptman's movements and body. Next up on deck, Pulse Man. Pulse Man's stage takes place in an abandoned factory, and Pulse Man himself is an experimental robot, for a new hydrogen fuel system that is based on the cardiovascular system. But later he was abandoned by his creators and left along with other machines that were left to guard the place, but turned the place into his own. His weakness is virus outbreak. Even it's said in the description, though the unusual fluid used to power the machines is currently sterile, it is easily contaminated by foreign bodies, which means he can get infected and die from a deadly disease. Cutman's rolling cutter is also his weakness because scissors can easily cut a living vessel. Like if you were going into surgeries, doctors use scissors to cut and remove or to fix something in your body. What's ironic is that Virus Man is also a doctor and works at a disease containment center. Speaking of which, now we have Virus Man. His stage is surrounded by diseases and some robots that resemble real-life viruses. Virus Man can fire out what appears to look like parasites and release his viruses of his own from out of his body. His weakness is charade clone, because a clone is the best way to cheat a virus or to avoid a deadly viral disease from killing you. Fireman is also a virus's weakness because scientifically, if you were to boil or burn a living organism, it will die. Next, we have Photon Man. His stage is based on a solar farm. Photon Man himself is a walking solar battery, and dude, if I ever get the chance, I will rewrite the backstory of each of these robots. Anyways, he is weak to Phantom Boom, or previously known as Phantom Fuse, because it is stated in his wiki. He is very particular about his solar panels, as extreme concussive force can easily shatter them, which means that a powerful force such as an explosion can easily fracture him. Bomb Man's Hyper Bomb can also defeat him, as well as Charade Clone. Since I keep mentioning Charade Clone, now we get to talk about Charade Man. His stage takes place in a massive theater of comedy and tragedy. Charade Man has the ability to imitate the movements and mannerisms of those he studies. He's used to fill in for human actors that have fallen ill or in temporary leave. He regrets that his creators have only made him capable of mimicking other performers, rather than permitting him to add his own flair to the characters. He can only mimic the performances of people or robots he studies through visual cues. His weakness is Crypt Cloak, because 1, a cloak can enter charade. 2, Charade Man has been quoted a goofy nature, while Crypt Man is based on more serious nature. 3, anyone can have a fate, and death comes for all. Nightman is also Charade Man's weakness, because a fake clone can never beat the real deal. It has been said that Nightman has destroyed thousands of robots, and Charade Man, with his clone, can be thrown to his body count. Circuit Man stage takes place in a circuit production and assembly factory. Circuit Man can also produce circuits from himself, and what is shown in his official artwork, it looks like he has a fuse breaker in his left hand. I didn't know that was a thing until my mom told me about. Some homes back then had like that type of circuit breaker, and if it were to go out, you have to go out and buy a new one to replace to get your house or one part of your house back up and running. Circuit Man's weakness is pulse stopper, because an electromagnetic field such as an EMP can destroy a circuit, and a biological substances can also damage a circuit board. Tornado Man is also his weakness, because a force of nature can destroy electronics, and Tornado Man's gyro can cleanly cut through circuits. Next, we have Deathman. His stage is based on a massive graveyard, and he is the deadliest robot to ever exist. Deathman's weakness is Charade Clone, because you can cheat death with a clone. Cutman can defeat Deathman because the phrase "cut the plug" means to pronounce something dead or for the end. And I'm going to throw in Fishman and Poleman, which appears in Justice Man's castle. Fishman's stage is somewhat like a fish tank. Fishman is weak to virus outbreak because, just like Pulseman, a living organism can get sick from a disease. He is also weak to Diamond's missile because a fish can't outswim a torpedo nor hide from one. Now here's his full info from his wiki. At first glance, Fishman appears to be an organic life form, but this is not the case. To carry out his missions of deep sea exploration, his creators felt that a more organic appearance would allow him to observe life forms without frightening them. Scientists acquired a skin like polymer used primarily for robot faces, and applied it to his entire body to make him more maneuverable in water and adaptable to pressure changes. Though he is still durable, his porous skin is susceptible to containment and microbiological life forms. After extensive water missions, he is known to build up quite a stink. His fish finders were once used to explore areas that even he couldn't access, but after joining Justice Man's ranks, they were fitted with explosives to become incredibly deadly tracking torpedoes. Now Polar Man. His stage is a snowy fridge. Polar Man is weak to Photon Flare because the sun can melt snow. He is weak to Fireman because the fire can also melt snow. Polar Man. After reading his wiki, I can sympathize and relate to the guy. Finally, we have Justice Man. Not much to say about his stage other than it's a fusion of all stages from the robot masters you defeated. Justice Man himself is weak to Shock Gauntlet and Elect Man's Thunder Beam because so much electricity can damage a person's brain. Now we talked about each robot's possible nationality. We all know that Boomman is American because it says that he worked in the mines of Arizona. Crickman could be French due to the catacombs in Paris and how French culture is sometimes Gothic. Charade Man could be Japanese because in the fusion form as Flare Man and with the fusion of Death Man, those forms keep referencing to Japanese folklore. Circuit Man could be Chinese because China has a lot of productions in machinery and products. Pulse Man doesn't have that much information to determine where he could be, but from what I remember making a backstory for him because he could be an American from New York, which would make sense because aside from Nightman, Diveman, and probably Nitro Man, Fireman at the end credits is watching Pulse Man's workout program. And most TVs are aired of what's in their country, and Fireman is an American because Industrial Light's Lab, shown in Mega Man 8, takes place in Texas. Photon Man could be Norwegian because it's the only country where the sun never sets. And the images I could find could potentially be correct because, yes, they have solar farms, but only have one wind farm called Viaka Wind Farm. Shockman could be Chinese as well due to his hydroelectric facility being large, and the largest hydroelectric facility is located in Yicheng, China, which is the Three Gorges Dam. Fishman could be from one of the countries that are on shore of the Pacific Ocean, because most marine life can be found there. Polar Man can either be from Greenland or from the Antarctic because according to the wiki, day in and day out of the daily grind of removing snow began to wear him down mentally, especially when he knew there were other ice-themed robots out there exploring the world and achieving great things. And Justice Man is American because he was built in Dr. Light's laboratory. Now onto the fusion robot masters. There are only 4 robots and only 4 fusion robots, and they appear in a certain order on how you defeat the robot masters. Let's say you start off with Crypt, Shock, Charade, or Virus. You will get the first set. Start off with Photon, Boom, Pulse, or Circuit, you will get the second set. But if you also start with Crypt but go on to Photon and Pulse, you can still get the second set. Or if you start with Circuit but go on to Crypt and Charade, you can also still get the first set. After explaining that, let's talk about what they represent. The fusion robots could potentially represent the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse, because each set only has 4 fusion robots. Warman and Flareman represent the Horsemen of War, but both are weak to Crypt Cloak, because a cloak can put out a fire and close to a theater of war, and death is everywhere in a place of violence. Nightman beats Warman because a knight full of chivalry beats a bloodthirsty king. Nitro Man can win against Flare Man because a Flare's fuse can be cut off. Terror Man and Thrill Man represent the Horseman of Conquest, but both are weak to Circuit Breaker because circuits are made to prevent you from harm's way and the worst from happening. Nightman beats Terror Man because in a time of fear, a knight is brave enough to have fortitude to fight in a world of terror. Nitro Man beats Thrill Man because Nitro Man has a safer design to prevent a person from being injured, but more daring at life than Thrill Man. Thrill Man has lost his fame because Nitro Man has stated from the wiki, after Nitro Man cleared a whooping 32 buses in his motorcycle form, Thrill Man attempted his own treacherous jump and failed miserably at it. Power Man and Port Man represent the Horsemen of Famine, but both are weak to Pulse Stopper because life provides resources you need to survive to prevent you from poverty. Tornado Man beats Port and Power because the force of nature always wins against machines, and of course, his jars are very effective against them. Plague Man and Thermal Man represent the Horsemen of Death, but both are weak to Phantom Boom because bombs can kill more people quicker than a plague and can destroy and erupt a volcano. Bomb Man can also beat them just as stated as Phantom Boom. When they all fuse, they become the Apocalypse. I will now explain why each Robot Master make up each fusion robot, starting off with Charade Man's fusion form. Since Charade Man has Shadow Man's moves and the imitation of Toad Man's jumps in his program, with the aid of Photon Man's IC chip, they fuse to make up the Flaming Ricochet sumo wrestler Flare Man. Next is Circuit Man's fusion form. Circuit Man is outdated, so with the help of Charade Man's program of imitating Quick and Gemini Man, they both make a fast processing flash drive, also known as Port Man, who can not only modify coding, but can also disguise as someone else. Basically, identity thefting. That's the Gemini part. What could also cue in the design is because of Circuit Man's Circuit Breaker, it has some electrical connectors which makes an adapter attaching two things. Thus, his weapon is a flash drive that conducts electricity and programs. Now that we mention electricity, Shockman's fusion is also matched with Circuit Man. Shockman makes electricity and the circuit conducts it, so with the combination of the two make up Power Man. Next up we have Boom Man's fusion form. Boom Man is a bomb, and bombs need some source of fuse to make them go off, and bombs are a symbol of war. A gauntlet is what medieval knights wore. When Shockman and Boom Man combine together, they make up War Man. Next up is Crypt Man's fusion form. Crypt Man scares intruders away, and Bomb Man can scare people with his weapon, and both are filled with fear. But both appear intimidating to the public. When they both combine, they make up a Black Widow robot called Terror Man. Fun fact: when I was developing my suit, I tried to make Terror Man's color, but accidentally made aquamarine instead of the green that he had. Next up on deck, we have Pulse Man's fusion form. When a pulse makes a rhythm, fear is what gives it the adrenaline it needs to react faster and get the pulse pumping. When Pulse Man and Crypt Man fuse together, they make Thrill Man. After that, we have Virus Man's fusion form. When an infectious disease touches a healthy organism, it creates a plague. When Virus and Pulse come as one, they make up Plague Man. Next, we have Photon Man's fusion form. Photon Man's weapon is based on thermodynamics, and Virus Man's weapon is based on virology. But when both merge as one, they make up Thermal Man, a fusion robot made for volcanology. Finally, when all of them combine as one, they make up Death Man. Most fear death and die in terror. A plague of a chronic disease leads to people's death. A flare can die out. Thrill-seeking can lead you to your death when you're not careful. A machine can die. Without power, many can die. Climate change can also cause death. And in warfare, death is everywhere. Also, fun fact about Deathman's mask. His mask is based on Uni, and Uni is a type of Yaki, demon, orc, or troll in Japanese folklore. They are believed to live in the caves or deep in the mountains. Unis are known for their superhuman strength and have been associated with powers like thunder and lightning, along with their evil nature manifesting in their prosperity for murder and cannibalism. If these future robot masters were bosses you were able to obtain powers from, then this would be the boss order and why. Let's start out with the easiest one. Plague defeats Port, Port defeats Power, Power defeats War, War defeats Terror, Terror defeats Thrill, Thrill defeats Flare, Flare defeats Thermo, and finally Thermo defeats Plague. Why Plague Man would defeat Portman is because a virus can infect your computer, and it can infect other devices such as a computer one, which would make it a cyber parasite. But also, yeah, biological substances can damage machinery. Portman can defeat Power Man because the person who has the most money has more power, or another way of looking at it, USBs, or Universal, I forgot what the S stands for, but USB drives are like conductors for electricity, and it can control an electrical current when you plug it in your computer. Power Man defeats War Man because how can you be a king without having power to hold the people? Thus, you wouldn't be in control of the government. War Man defeats Terror Man because terror arises you need war in order to acquire peace and order. Terror Man defeats Thrill Man because when you are thrill-seeking, you can't avoid the terror and fate. Real story. My dad is a cop, and he was working one night and got a call from someone of the area that said some kids were on private property owned by the authority of the area. And once he got there, a bunch of kids screamed and ran in fear. And my dad asked what happened, and they reported to have seen a ghost and told them to go get their other friends. As my dad went to go get the other kids, they said they saw someone, but it wasn't like a normal human. As he escorted them out, he believed that they learned their lesson to not come back there. He believes in ghosts, and he tells me that he is scared of going to the Crescent Hotel with me. But I want to go there for my upcoming video game, Enchanted Life, a night in a Crescent Hotel. Now back on track, Thrill Man beats Flare Man because professionals performing dangerous acts can play with fire. Flare Man beats Thermal Man because just like Bomb Man and Phantom Boom, an explosion can cause a volcano to lose itself and erupt. Thermal Man can defeat Plague Man because fire can burn the organisms. Now, who can defeat Death Man and who can Death defeat? It's my guess Thermal Man can defeat Death Man because levels of lava can burn bones and pressurize it with heat to become oil, and it can be more deadly to the environment and any living things. Also, Thermal Man is beheaded too, which gives him more advantage against Death Man. Now, Death Man can defeat War because death is everywhere in war, and death can also brings peace. Next is Fishman. Fishman would be weak to plague because diseases are deadly to other living organisms. Fishman can defeat Thrill-Man because in the deep blue, some dangers are inescapable. Polar Man would be weak to Flare-Man because fire and explosives can melt and destroy ice. Polar Man would be strong against Thermal Man because after a volcano erupts, the cold tides could come in to bring the Ice Age. Finally, Justice Man. He is obviously weak to Power Man because too much electricity can fry a person's brain, and with no power to bring justice, there can't be any. Now, Justice Man will be strong against Terror Man because in a world of terror and disorder, justice is brave and it brings order. Now, where do each robot will go around the world? Terror Man will still be in France. Thorough Man would be in Mexico because I can picture it. Yep, Port Man and Power Man will still be in China. Flare Man would probably be somewhere in Vegas because the tiles of Flare Man's stage could be Red Rock, which you can find in Red Rock Canyon State Park. And they are Orlegs in Vegas. War Man could be in the United Kingdoms and Warwick Castle. Plague Man could be in Italy because that's where the bubonic plague arrived and started in Europe. Thrill Man, I can think of two places that have beautiful cities to have a thrill in: New York and Atlanta, Georgia. Now, for Death Man, since they are in one fusion, the place I could find with the most graves are in Japan and in Russia. Just now, I asked Bing, and Bing said that Japan was the one with the most cemeteries. But I also remember seeing something about Russia when I was trying to develop a story or episode to start my Champion Life series. Finally, for the conclusion, this game is kind of political and philosophical at the same time. It's a game that I can also relate with. Also, depending on how up-to-date your computer is, the graphic filters can play a huge change in your gameplay. If you have an old Windows, the filter will be applied, but if you have a gaming setup like mine, then it won't be. It won't apply the filter. And now, setting that aside, I enjoy the game a lot, and that's all the details and theories I have for the game. Have a good day and or night. Bye bye.